This is the Free Zone Communiqué, transmitting from Virginia's unoccupied sector. If you think smart cities, DEI, censorship, government intrusion, bug paste, and other left-wing nonsense are no longer a possibility, think again. We've won one election with slim majorities. Our work to rebuild a free and sane America has just begun.
This is the Free Zone Communiqué on the P4B. I'm your host with the lilting operatic voice, Matt Jordan. I'm afraid it's going to be a few more days before I actually get my voice back. This will be a bit froggy of a show, but we'll get there one of these days. I've pretty much gotten over whatever was bugging me, and the voice is just the dregs of that disease. Today, we'll deal with the celebration of the assassination of his CEO, how low we have sunk. But we'll also talk about the underlying issues. Some politicians have no dignity. This is not the sole purview of the left. The chinless douche Mitch McConnell has been lecturing MAGA and their isolationism. This is a term that has gotten too much traction over the years. Mitch, the beneficiary of millions of dirty Chinese dollars over the years, was referring to Trump voters, not all MAGA, and their rejection of the idea that we must be all in on the Ukraine. To object to killing Ukrainian and Russian boys for nothing is not isolationist. To say correctly that the United States' interests are not addressed by our involvement is not isolationist. To be selective in our involvement in foreign conflict is not isolationist. It is deliberative. When Rand Paul spoke out against our involvement in Syria, having seen that both sides were in the conflict were tearing each other to pieces, and that wasn't our interests, it got him labeled as an isolationist by conservatives. Many of the labelers were among my friends. Then Barrio drew his red line in the Syrian sand. And we're watching the last of that foreign policy failure unfold in real time right now. So yes, political whores do say stupid things and do stupid things to be a part of a trending, often immature, often ill-considered narrative. Tonight, after days of Facebook and Instagram and TikTok losers singing the praises of the shitbag that shot the United Healthcare CEO, I got a special treat. I watched Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, speak in apologetic terms for the murder. That she is a knee-jerk idiot is no surprise. She is a lefty emotionalist of the first order. But the point she was making was priceless. She said that eventually people get fed up, speaking in terms of the difficulty in dealing with insurance companies. And they take matters into their own hands. Thank you, Liz. What she's likely too stupid to realize, or is hoping you won't twig to, is that the reason the insurance industry sucks balls is because of people like her and the damage they've done to the insurance industry for decades. This is most true, of course, in the case of medical insurance. The Po River Holiday Shop is now open. While I'm banging on about it, browse the photos below the audio line to see some of the gift ideas and stocking stuffers you'll find there. I moved several pieces from their regular listings into the shop. We have baby's first Christmas ornament. We have a gag ornament, baby's umpteenth Christmas. Both are personalized for your baby and your big baby. There are the Army-Navy cell phone tough cases. I pulled in some cool wine stoppers. Always hand-turned, carved, and finished by me, always one of a kind. And of course, there is the Po River Ugly Christmas Sweater. It will garner attention at your next holiday party. I even made a holiday mug that will make Dallas Cowboys fans happy. God knows they need it. You should definitely order soon, as the shops who customize our stuff for Po River get pretty busy this time of year. There ought to be a law. It has been the growing interference in health insurance over decades, and not a little union bullshit culminating in Obamacare, that has utterly destroyed medical care and made it unimaginably expensive. Let's review. There was a time when insurance was a bet and sort of a savings account. You bet you or your kids would get sick or seriously injured. The insurance company bet they wouldn't. When your kid got a bloody nose in a fight, you didn't call the insurance company. You paid the doc a reasonable fee. People already knew then that the insurance was not a bottomless candy drawer and best used when the need was greatest. And no one wanted to be seen unnecessarily as a health risk. That's how you keep the best rates, and you have money you need when the real shit happens. Keep in mind that even then, you couldn't be turned away from a hospital for treatment. If you showed up in an emergency room without cash or a check, you were billed. If you paid, great. If you didn't, the hospital would make up the difference by selling part of your debt to a collection agency and spreading the rest of the losses among the other patients. As in all things, people who got collection notices or had to spend more than they were willing complained, mostly to each other. And who can blame them? It's human nature. But some complain to their political reps with the cliche, there ought to be a law. This kind of thing is low-hanging fruit for a certain type of politician, political whores. They don't care for the consequences of their pandering. They just want to be seen as doling out the goodies. And this is a target-rich environment. Over time, laws were passed insisting that more and more maladies and injuries be covered by insurance policies. Government mandates. The inclusions were by their nature less and less consequential, but they were far more numerous. Stitches, cold remedies, anything became fair game. As more things were mandated, insurance companies would refuse to cover more of the things that weren't mandated, even if they had covered them in the past. And the people then blamed, you guessed it, the insurance companies. You could have gotten your stitches for $50, but they were now an insurance mandate. The same stitches now cost $290. The difference now paid for whatever else the government was mandating. I think you see the trend here. While this was going on, going back even further to the 1950s, there was another boondoggle going on from, of all places, the tax code. There was a time in the mid-20th century when taxes were so out of hand, people at the top of the tax charts started pleading with their employers or stockholders to pay them in something other than cash. If you wanted to expand the lessons learned here, sign up for Art Laffer's excellent lecture on taxes and the economy. I'll leave a link. Anywho, successful people were finding themselves in tax brackets so high, going to work became an exercise in stupid. Executives and salesmen started to ask that their employers pay them in some way other than cash. That's when club memberships, cars, private planes, things like that became perks, along with medical insurance. Well, when the unions caught wind of this, they saw an angle. If those greedy executives got goodies, the union guys should get them too, right? They started demanding insurance benefits as well. When workers with union pull complained that their wart removal wasn't covered by insurance provided by the greedy insurance companies, it was child's play to get the same kind of government-mandated coverage like regular folks were clamoring for. It's an Achilles heel of our government system. Every time that people that realize they can vote other people's money unto themselves, they do. By barging into the insurance industry, the government found a new wholesale scam they could use to buy votes. And so it continued until Barry O came along and dropped the masquerade altogether. He just took over half of all coverage and regulated the shit out of the rest of the industry. A few crony companies were blessed with becoming the awardees of most of the money sloshing around, with no real competition. You were required to buy your insurance from the few companies remaining in designated territories. Consider this somewhat lengthy quote from the Manhattan Institute, and then I'll address it further. I'll leave a link so you can read where the quote actually comes from. Quote, analysts, there's a footnote, are nonetheless skeptical that this will do much to reduce healthcare costs, and no state has yet pursued this option. The American Academy of Actuaries notes that health insurance premiums largely reflect the underlying costs associated with delivery of medical care rather than the degree of insurance market competition. First part of that statement is duh, the second part's a lie. They argue that out-of-state insurers are kept out by the difficulty of establishing provider networks, and that even if they could enter, newcomers would have less leverage to negotiate good rates from hospitals and physicians than incumbents with large market shares. Yet, health insurance premiums vary substantially between states, and there are major price disparities in neighboring counties across state borders. For instance, the equivalent benchmark plans on Obamacare's exchange in northeastern Oklahoma counties, Cherokee, Delaware, and Mays, have premiums between $600 and $700, whereas those in neighboring counties, Brentwood, Crawford, and Washington across the border in Arkansas, cost $200 to $300. Such major disparities consistently track state borders in all regions of the country, outweighing variations in costs driven by local demographics and provider market structures. The footnote is mine. Now let's take that and work backwards. This is a little tough because I have to keep pausing to drink water and cough. Okay, so working backward through that quote, they mentioned state border regions. Well, in state border regions like Philadelphia and Camden, or King George, Virginia, and La Plata, Maryland, shouldn't mean a thing when buying a gallon of milk or a gallon of gasoline. Wide disparities only exist due to the government regulation and taxation. Demographics and income are often very similar, So, what makes it difficult for companies to do business from sea to shining sea are the regulations that prevent cross-border trade, which runs athwart the Constitution but pleases the cronies. Those imaginary lines don't prevent competitive pricing by companies. They prevent competition, period. Crony companies, in tight with state and federal government, love this. If one can't possibly have one program that works across the country, why can the federal government do it with Medicare and Medicaid, often for people living at 400% of the poverty level? The answer: because the federal government reserves that right for itself while protecting cronies and markets across the country. Delivery of medical care, addressed in the quote, is only disparate because the policies of the state-protected territories provide disparate funding for that care. The quote gives the impression that the free market can't fix it because it is unfixable, but it is fixable. For the truly slow, Obamacare is not about health care. It's about sucking more money into the general fund and pretending to care about your health. It's about turning health insurance into a nanny state nightmare. And it's working. In fact, as in all things the government throws money at, the actual health care gets more expensive every year. The hospitals demand more, so the insurance companies left standing charge more. Since it's all mandated, the hospitals know they can do it again next year. Right out of the gate, 3 states saw their insurance costs triple as soon as Obamacare was on the streets. Since I am nothing if not solutions-oriented, I'll tell you how we fix this. Like everything we need to fix this country, this has been left to fester for far too long. That will make it a bit painful, but the return on investment will be so worth it. First, we put insurance on notice that the government freebies are going to end, but money-making opportunities are about to grow exponentially. Then we pass a law that by a date certain, call it 18 months, Obamacare is finished. In this law, we forbid the federal government from engaging in coverage mandates. Also in this law, we allow for unfettered interstate insurance trade. Finally, we require hospitals to have transparent, itemized pricing of all services if paid by insurance or by the patient directly. So many things will immediately happen just in preparation of this. First, we'll find out what a hospital would take from you as a cash payment. Smart general practitioners and some specialties would start concierge medicine programs. That means they allow individuals and families to sign up as a patient for a flat monthly retainer, far cheaper than any insurance policy as we know it now. For example, Dr. Jones charges you a monthly fee of $150 per month to be your family doctor, and perhaps $80 per individual. Most months you wouldn't see the guy. By building a practice of several hundred patients, he makes a very good living and you have an affordable GP. Prices would still vary across the country, California being the high-tax, low-service regulation dump that it is, would still cost more. The doctors must pay the bills and make a profit. Mississippi would be lower, of course. At any rate, costs are still affected by the weight of governance, not provision of care. Next, you make insurance what it is intended to be to begin with: catastrophic coverage. Money that no average person could expect to come up with in one go to pay for the big stuff. With this model, the cost of health care and the coverage thereof plummets. Would rich people still be able to afford coverage for new tits and bastard diseases? Yes. Will you? Not likely. If you're not quite wealthy, you can't right now. Further, decouple coverage from work and the competing blocks of customers that allow providers to get fat and lazy. Let the providers compete. Make entire states or regions one customer block that must be pleased. You'll be shocked at how much more coverage we can all afford. Unions and providers have created artificial enclaves of coverage that have skewed the way insurance business operates. Government mandated coverage has made insurance less responsive and disqualified more people than it has helped simply by driving up costs. Obamacare has imposed the college loan business model on the cost of coverage and thereby medicine. The more money the government dumps on the system, the more the system will demand, causing the government to simply dump more money into the system. There's a footnote. So, what's stopping us from doing it? Well, the relationship between the government and the cronies in their non-compete enclaves is the biggest hurdle. That has to go. The quote above uses a bit of misdirection, word games, to discourage talk of competition, but they tip their hand at the same time. They argue that out-of-state insurers are kept out by the difficulty of establishing provider networks, and that even if they could enter, newcomers would have less leverage to negotiate good rates from hospitals and physicians than incumbents with large market shares. The reason the little guy can't just build a network and go to work is because of the existing money that is already sloshing around inside the crony enclaves. What the analysts here pretend not to know is if it were announced that all states were laid wide open to competition, it wouldn't be a guy starting an insurance company in his basement who would swoop in. It would be pigs like United Healthcare, who have their crony protections taken away, would immediately move to expand their reach. Also, slightly smaller companies would pool their resources to take advantage of the new markets. What are hospitals going to tell all those people who want to give them money? No. As the insurance industry would have to live with competition, so would hospitals. This is all part of the savings I suggested earlier and where it comes from. Specialists who presently write their own ticket will have to play as well. You can't be a mega rich surgeon if you don't have hospitals who can pay you. This would automatically solve the problem of too many doctors moving directly to specialization and ignoring general practice or emergency practice. The family doc and the tough ER dude would be sexy again. Think of the movies and TV shows that would spawn. But yes, we can fix this corrupt and broken system, and the free market is the answer. Like everything else the federal government has barged into, besides defense, foreign affairs, and guaranteeing interstate trade, there's irony under the circumstances. It has fucked up the medical industry top to bottom and beyond recognition. Everything I explained here is why we have a Byzantine insurance system. Obamacare caused the complexity and the corruption to expand exponentially. That's why insurance companies deny, delay, and depose, like we heard with the shooter. They must. The system and your government protect and reward them for doing it. Shooting CEOs won't fix this. And celebrating that or apologizing, like that idiot Warren just did, demonstrates the state of ignorance the system itself has left us in. Warren is a major cog in that system, a proponent of all things government control. She intends to keep you in that state of ignorance with her dumbass statement. How much money, I wonder, has she made trading on companies Obamacare and related legislation has benefited? Do more research. You'll see that I'm right. Let's just hope there are people with the vision and the sack to start the ball rolling in this present administration. Finally, we get back to 65. Check the red button and the links below the video. The button is marked, quote, 65 Concept Explained. We missed on this in the last several election cycles, and my voice is never going to be the same again. I've been talking about 65 Concept nonstop for 10 years. And the issue we discussed today, along with several others, can't be fixed by the presidential fiat. We must have a conservative, gutsy, and visionary veto-proof majority in the Senate and a huge majority in the House to fix any of it. And we need alert and insistent citizens breathing down their necks to see it through. They don't care about you. Teach them to fear you.
Please tell a friend about the Free Zone Communiqué. We live and die with the share and subscribe buttons. Please use affiliate and sponsor buttons to support our work. Thank you very much for joining us today.